Manchester City is the most successful club in recent history. They spent more money than anyone else to achieve that, buying the best players and best manager, but also investing smartly into the club while building a strong project. At one point, they were the gold standard for football.
Cancelo with the outside of his boot, it's Haaland!
But what if I told you that one hack would expose the dark truth about the club's success? The truth about how the club was able to take over football so quickly. This triggered a chain of events that would lead to the biggest, most controversial scandal in football history. Many have heard a version of the story, but don't know the real details. By the end of this video, all the myths will be torn apart, showing the unfiltered truth about this scandal, and you can judge for yourself what you think of Man City. I spent countless hours going through all the court documents, every leaked email, and every charge against Man City. After showing you what I found, you'll see exactly why this is by far the craziest story football has ever seen, with consequences that are still going to be felt years from now. A story that will completely change football forever. September 1st, 2008. Abu Dhabi United Group purchased Man City for £200 million, with Sheikh Mansour now owner, and Man City now the richest football club in the world. City were a low to mid-table club, but with their massive potential, the new owner wanted to make Man City the best club in the world as soon as possible, which of course meant spending lots of money. On the day of the takeover, that intent was made clear when they obliterated their club record transfer fee to sign Real Madrid star Robinho. This was only the beginning. Over the next 4 years, City continued to spend more than literally anyone else in football. Their net spend from 2008 to 2012 dwarfed everyone else's. No one could compete with the fees they were paying or wages they were offering, signing top targets like Carlos Tevez, Yaya Toure, Aguero, David Silva, Balotelli, and more. To afford these players, Sheikh Mansour had pumped £1 billion of his own money into the club in those first couple years, an unbelievable amount of money that teams didn't have at their disposal. A bigger shock was City was spending more on wages than they were earning in revenue, meaning the club was operating very unsustainably, which of course is not a problem when your owner is the deputy prime minister of one of the richest countries on the planet. But their loss numbers were unheard of. Over £500 million lost in 4 years, the most in football by far, and an amount of money that would bankrupt most clubs. Man City, however, wanted to spend even more in their relentless pursuit of success. This didn't sit right with some. The competitive balance of football was lopsided. Sovereign wealth being able to invest literal billions into a club while the rest could only stop and stare concerned many. What kind of president does that set? Is it even fair? Well, the powers that be didn't think so, and they wanted to do something about it. So UEFA came up with a plan led by President Michel Platini. Clubs would only be allowed to spend what they earned, and starting from the 2011-12 season, clubs were limited to losing a total of £37 million over a rolling 3-year period. Clubs who failed to do so risked serious punishment, including expulsion from the Champions League. And so, the financial fair play rules were born, to limit overspending, limit inflation of player wages, and keeping football sustainable. There was a great risk of crisis, of the bubble bursting. You can see from the losses and the debts that the situation is not that healthy, and we cannot go on like this. We had to do something. Clubs voted in favour of the new ruling. Most liked the idea, but there were a few problems. One being, if you could only spend what you earned, then obviously the teams who earned the most would remain at the top of football in comparison to clubs who couldn't generate that revenue nor invest. It also meant in pursuit of increasing revenue, fans would suffer as clubs raised ticket prices to keep within FFP rules. For Man City, however, they saw this as a direct attack on their business model, a ruling specifically made to stop them from joining Europe's top ranks. And now they had to figure out a way of significantly increasing their revenue, not just to try and spend more money, but also to reach the break-even figure as soon as possible to not be kicked out of the Champions League. Their solution to this problem turned a lot of heads. In July 2011, City signed a sponsorship deal with Etihad for naming rights of the stadium and a kit deal worth £400 million over 10 years, by far the biggest deal of this nature. One that concerned many whether it was fair value or not, because Etihad is owned by the Abu Dhabi government, which of course has close ties to Man City. On the outside, it looked like City's owners were trying to bypass FFP by using their businesses to invest crazy money into Man City, something that Man City were quick to deny.
This is not necessarily in order to meet any compliance. This is a plan of growth between two great companies.
They also had sponsorship deals with other Abu Dhabi companies that had close ties to the government, but it was the Etihad deal that UEFA were going to investigate the price of. In the meantime, Mansour's bullish investment was actually paying off. In 2011, City beat Stoke in the FA Cup final to pick up their first trophy in 35 years, and just 1 year later, they announced themselves onto the scene, beating Man United 6-1 at Old Trafford and beating their rivals to the Premier League title in the dying minutes thanks to Within 4 years of Mansour's ownership, City went from mid-table to standing at the summit of English football. Their success was rapid, yet faster than their success was the continued spread of financial regulation. The Premier League in February 2013 announced their new regulations similar to FFP but more forgiving, with clubs being allowed to lose a maximum of £105 million over 3 years. City were of course opposed to this. Manager Roberto Mancini fumed at the new rules and was frustrated since City couldn't spend the money he wanted to strengthen the squad, as that would have risked breaching FFP. So despite all the winning, City were desperately trying to balance the books and earn more money, hoping that they would break even. Things didn't quite sort themselves out, however. For the 12-13 season, City announced a loss of £52 million for the year, taking their loss from 2011 to 2013 to a total of £150 million, way over the £37 million UEFA allowed for FFP. The club were in a dangerous position with a massive risk of punishment, but they believed they would comply with the ruling due to an exemption for wages of players signed before 2010. Since that falls outside of the FFP timeframe, it was a bold move to assume they would be safe, leaving it in the hands of UEFA to deal with. Yet on the pitch, they still were pushing forward. After losing the Premier League title and FA Cup final in 2013, Mancini was sacked and Manuel Pellegrini was brought in. They signed key players like Fernandinho, Jesus Navas and Negredo, which were massive additions. The 13-14 season saw City win the League Cup after beating Sunderland in the final, as well as the league title for the second time in just 3 years. There was no doubt about it now. The City project was a success. However, their celebrations would be cut short. Just 5 days after winning the league title, 9 teams were sanctioned by UEFA for FFP violations, with Man City receiving the biggest punishment of all. They were fined £50 million, had their Champions League squad restriction go from 25 players to 21, and couldn't increase their wage bill for the next 2 seasons. If they complied with those conditions, then £32 million of the fine would be suspended. In the end, UEFA thought their £150 million losses was simply too much, regardless of the wage exemption argument. For some, this punishment wasn't strong enough, but for Man City, they were fuming. They fundamentally disagreed with the sanctions and desperately wanted to fight their case, but decided against it. They knew it was better to just accept what was realistically a slap on the wrist, and despite not being able to spend too much in the following season, they pressed on, focusing on increasing their revenue and expanding their project. Starting with increasing their commercial revenue by signing new brand partners left and right, securing big sponsorship money where they could. The Premier League also got a new TV deal, meaning another income boost, and by the end of 2014, City opened their brand new City Football Academy to develop homegrown talent with the best facilities to boost the team internally. Their stadium also received a massive upgrade with new £25,000 a game premium box seats and a stadium expansion to be completed in 2015. This wasn't a team just looking to spend recklessly, but smart deals and strategic investment meant the team were building a stable financial future. And that arrived quickly, as in 2015, they posted a profit of £11 million for the first time under Sheikh Mansour. This was a team that many feared would ruin football with their unsustainability, yet they were now sustainable with healthy revenue numbers and a big investment in infrastructure. With their new money, they went back into the transfer market to start spending big again, signing the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling and Otamendi for big fees and giving them massive wages. City weren't able to win the league that season, but they arguably won something bigger. To the City board, there was one piece of the puzzle missing, a name that they had been trying to secure for years that would make them unstoppable. Eventually, they got him. Pep Guardiola, the best manager in the world, was now heading to Manchester for the 16-17 season. This, along with the fact City could now spend even more money, was a dangerous combination that shook football to its core. Pep's first 2 seasons at City saw him sign serious talent. Bernardo Silva, John Stones, Gundogan, Ederson, Sane, Walker and loads more. They spent nearly £500 million on players in just 2 years, an absurd amount of money, more than anyone else during that time period. It was a relentless investment into the team that was soon to pay off. Pep wasn't able to secure a trophy in his first season, but in his second season, City won the League Cup, beating Arsenal in the final, and they secured the Premier League title in historic fashion. 100 points, 32 wins and 106 goals, all Premier League records for a single season. They didn't just win, they dominated, and they did so playing some of the best football the world has seen. They did spend a lot of money to get there, but they spent it wisely, with the City project now the gold standard around football. They were the team to emulate, and it was clear this was the beginning of a legitimate dynasty. November 2018 marked a pivotal point in football. A Portuguese hacker named Rui Pinto uncovered private emails from big football institutions. German news magazine Der Spiegel had gone through these emails and were about to publish the most shocking revelations the sport has ever seen. Articles that would trigger a chain of events that would completely dismantle football. We have to go back to 2014, just before UEFA sanctioned Man City for FFP violation. UEFA audited Man City's account in an investigation of their compliance, and it did not go well. They found that 84% of City's stellar commercial income actually came from sponsors based in Abu Dhabi. Marketing experts determined that most of these Abu Dhabi sponsorships were significantly overvalued, including the controversial Etihad deal, up to 80% higher than their actual market value. These deals brought in 50 million a year for them. Man City were having none of it. They called the audit flawed, denying any wrongdoing, but UEFA needed to enforce their rules. City were trying to get around it, and they already made it clear serious punishment would be dealt if they suspected any violations. The club, however, were not willing to accept any punishment whatsoever and wanted to fight UEFA and FFP as a whole, with Chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak telling UEFA General Secretary at the time Gianni Infantino he would rather spend 30 million on the 50 best lawyers in the world to sue them for the next 10 years. This was their stance: exonerate us or see us in court. UEFA couldn't just roll over, and eventually informed Man City they would be receiving a fine, which City responded with an internal memo titled Possible Legal Actions, with club lawyer Simon Cliff considering overwhelming UEFA with lawsuits. This was not a fight either side looked like they wanted to back out of, but if City kept fighting, they had way more to lose. Keeping up the fight meant Man City would potentially be kicked out of the Champions League, so instead they settled with the fine because, in the words of Man City CEO, it does not materially affect us. They were able to get away with a slap on the wrist for something that could have been way worse. It also showed the lengths City were willing to go to fight their case and remain at the top of football. Yet this saga only scratched the surface of the allegations about to be thrown at City, because the rest of the leaks showed an internal system that no one knew about, a secret that was about to expose their entire business model. At the end of the 12-13 season, Mancini was fired, a termination that cost City a lot of money, leaving them falling short 10 million of FFP compliance. Rather than reporting this loss, the club went with another option. The club's CFO, Jorge Chumillas, wrote in an email, "I think that the only solution left would be an additional amount of AD sponsorships to cover this gap." And that's what they did. A few days later, Etihad, ABA and Abu Dhabi Tourism Authority were all paying extra money for their sponsorships and acted as if that was the agreed deal since the start of the year. Increasing revenue after the fact to cover shortfall is a clear violation, yet there's more. In the leaked emails was a contract between an AD sponsor ABA and Man City for £15 million per year. As we discussed, the annual direct obligation for ABA is £3 million. The remaining £12 million requirement will come from alternative sources provided by His Highness. The email clearly stated ABA wasn't paying the full obligation. Most of it was coming from His Highness, which easily could be interpreted as club owner Sheikh Mansour, but His Highness could be anyone, so we can't assume. The next email, however, is very clear. While discussing the terms of the Etihad sponsorship payment to Man City, club CFO sent an invoice for the sponsorship to another club exec. The sponsorship fees for the 15-16 season was £67.5 million. He clarified, "Please note that out of the £67.5 million, £8 million should be funded directly by Etihad and £59.5 by ADUG, Abu Dhabi United Group, the owners of Manchester City." There were other emails that also backed up this payment plan, meaning if this was true, City were receiving equity into the club through their owners and disguised it as overvalued sponsorship money, allowing them to inflate their revenue and spend all the money they wanted. This was groundbreaking, exposing City's entire business model, and Der Spiegel weren't finished with the leaks. They uncovered a secret contract for former manager Roberto Mancini. It was alleged that he signed another contract the same day he signed his City contract with Al Jazeera Football Club for a higher salary than he got at City. The role was as a consultant, which required 4 days a year of work. Al Jazeera Football Club is owned by Sheikh Mansour. These leaks showed a club doing extremely dodgy deals to circumvent financial rules and accounting, misleading everyone as to where the money was coming from and how much they were actually spending. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. There were more articles, accusations, and somehow there were still literally millions of emails for these news outlets to go through to continue piecing the story together for the whole world to see. At the heart of this, it meant one thing: City were called out for cheating, and now everyone knew that their success, which was hinged on their ability to spend hundreds of millions on the best players and best manager in football, was achieved by not following the same rules that everyone else was following. It tarnished everything they had built. Their trophies were built on lies, and the immediate aftermath was hectic. Calls for justice and claims they were cheaters. City denied everything and responded to the Spiegel saying this is an organized and clear attempt to damage the club's reputation. Well, it worked. Their reputation was shattered, and by March 2019, 4 months after their initial leaks, UEFA and the Premier League announced their investigations into Man City. Now it was the time for the governing bodies to come up to their own conclusions, and the whole football world was anxiously waiting to see what they came up with, just how bad the damage would be. For now, it was time to get back to football, which City were dominating. The 18-19 season was a massive success, achieving another historical feat, winning the League Cup, the FA Cup, and thanks to a 98-point season, they completed the domestic treble, sealing the league title over Liverpool. Their greatness was undeniable, but with the allegations looming, their success wasn't met with the same respect or admiration. Chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak gave the club's defining views on the matter.
So, am I uncomfortable? No. I think I respect regulatory bodies doing their job, and any regulatory process that asks questions, we have to, I think, professionally respond to, which is what we've done. I believe quite comfortably if the process is going to be judged on facts, then unquestionably we will prevail. If it's not about facts and it's about other things, then it's a different conversation.
It seemed like the club were unbothered. They were still winning and investing. To them, noise was just noise. They followed their strong season up with signing Rodri and Cancelo, improving the squad even further. Everyone wanted them punished, but to them, it was business as usual. Nothing was going to distract their pursuit of greatness.
Manchester City have been banned from the Champions League for the next 2 seasons for breaking financial fair play rules. Europe's football governing body, UEFA, have also fined the club £25 million.
Manchester City is disappointed but not surprised by today's announcement by the UEFA adjudicatory chamber. The club will pursue an impartial judgment as quickly as possible and will therefore, in the first instance, commence proceedings with the Court of Arbitration for Sport at the earliest opportunity.
The most important thing I have to say today is that the allegations are not true. They're simply not true. The owner has not put money in this club that has not been properly declared. Our accounts have been scrutinized many times by auditors, by regulators, by investors, and this is perfectly clear. But at the end, this is an internal process that has been initiated and then prosecuted and then judged by this FFP chamber at UEFA. This FFP investigatory chamber relied more on out-of-context stolen emails than all the other evidence that we provided on what actually happened. This seems to be less about justice and more about politics.
This news sent shockwaves around football. For some, justice was finally served by UEFA. For City, this was the worst case scenario. Not being able to play in the Champions League meant they would miss out on up to £150 million per year, players potentially leaving, and their club image was destroyed. City that season already lost the league title, so had their eyes set on the Champions League, and with an impending ban, it might have been their last chance to win if they lost their appeal. But just 3 weeks after their ban, the whole world stopped due to the pandemic, meaning they were going to have to wait even longer to find out the result of the appeal. Eventually,
In the last hour, it's been announced that Manchester City's 2-year ban from European football has been lifted. This means the Premier League club will now be able to compete in next season's UEFA Champions League competition.
in July 2020, the Court of Arbitration for Sport lifted their 2-year ban and their fine was reduced from £27 million to £9 million. City put out a statement saying the decision was validation of the club's position and the body of evidence that it was able to present. City were cleared, officially innocent. The news was celebrated amongst the senior staff at the club, even taking a selfie of them with the verdict. From having the harshest punishment possible turn into another slap on the wrist fine was amazing for City, but terrible for FFP. UEFA were made to look like fools by City again, and they had their entire association and rules made a mockery of, and it's safe to say the reaction was not pretty.
I don't wish anybody anything bad and stuff. As I said, I'm happy that City can play Champions League, but I don't think it was a good day for football yesterday.
In relation to the decision, I think in any case is a disgraceful decision. I think to be punished with some million is a disgrace as a decision. If you are not guilty, you are not punished.
Incredibly happy for the decision and show that all the people said about the club, it wasn't true. Jose and all the managers should know that we were damaged. We should be apologize.
The overturning of the ban was extremely controversial, but regardless of how football reacted to the ban, only one thing really mattered. How did CAS come to their conclusion? What was the actual reason for Man City's innocence? Let's uncover the details of the trial. First, the Etisalat and Etihad deals were the focus of the trial, nothing else. Second, despite City not cooperating with UEFA's investigations, at the appeal hearing, City confirmed that the leaked emails to the media were true and provided them to the court. This meant it was an uphill fight for Man City, but they came with 9 of the best lawyers money can buy, while UEFA came with just 3. Both sides presented their arguments to the court, and here's the summary of the key points. Man City made the argument that UEFA's standard of proof, being inference of a few emails and not money moving accounts or transactional evidence, was weak. For a case/punishment to be this big, the bar needs to be higher. They also argued that if they did only receive 8 million a year from Etihad, they would have been ripped off, as they promoted them substantially, worth a lot more than 8 million. Finally, they pointed out that under Swiss law, most of these emails fell way out of the time restriction, making them time barred and inadmissible. UEFA, on the other hand, argued that emails were sufficient proof due to how clear what the emails were referring to. Based on the emails, they believed ADUG paid at least £200 million as disguised equity and that Man City's explanations just weren't good enough. They believed the breach warranted a severe punishment. CAS, after hearing a very long list of arguments, came to the conclusion that any breaches of emails before May 2014 were in fact time barred and were thrown out. This meant most of the allegations weren't scrutinized except for the emails of Etihad payments for 2014 and 2016. In regards to those emails, in a 2-to-1 majority ruling, the panel did not agree that the emails are direct evidence that what was written in the emails was actually carried out. It was up to UEFA to prove that those allegations were indeed executed. The arrangements discussed must be rooted in contemporaneous accounting or transactional evidence. Emails alone were not enough. However, UEFA did point out something potentially incriminating. Etihad had made 2 separate payments to Man City, equaling the exact sum in those emails, which UEFA claimed was enough proof that one payment was Etihad and the other ADUG. City's explanation was that the 8 million came from Etihad's marketing budget and that 59.5 million came from centrally held funds. The majority of the panel, despite saying this explanation was not incredible, still rejected UEFA's claim that that was enough evidence. So thanks to a 2-to-1 verdict, City were free. The fine they ended up paying was due to non-cooperation of UEFA's investigation, but as for the FFP stuff, they were exonerated. And no one can argue with the courts, right? Well, turns out you can, because 2 of the 3 panel members were nominated by Man City. In fact, one panel member is a partner in a law firm with an office in Abu Dhabi, which lists Etisalat and Etihad as clients, literally the 2 companies involved in this trial. City said his firm, not him personally, acted for those companies, but that does not stop that from being a major conflict of interest, one that was never addressed nor questioned by UEFA. Bear in mind, City won this case on a 2-to-1 verdict. Regardless, that was over now. Settled in courts, meaning us fans just had to move on and City can continue their pursuit of European glory without UEFA sanctions, hoping that no more trouble comes their way. Their hunt for the Champions League restarted in 2020, but they fell short, losing to Lyon in the one-leg quarter-final during the pandemic, meaning they had to readjust. Over the next 2 years, they spent another 300 million to improve the team, including breaking the Premier League transfer record to sign Jack Grealish for £100 million. To their credit, the signings paid off. They secured the Premier League title in 2021 and 2022, re-establishing their dominance in England and making it 4 league titles in just 5 years. The dynasty was undeniable. As for the Champions League, in 2021 they managed to get over a massive hurdle, reaching the final where they faced Chelsea, a chance to win the competition they were almost banned from. But Chelsea managed to pull off a 1-0 victory over City and it was back to the drawing board. The 2022 Champions League saw them minutes away from back-to-back finals appearances, but thanks to a 90th minute Rodrigo double, Real Madrid somehow came back against Man City, making it yet another heartbreak in Europe. It seemed like no matter what they did, they just couldn't get over the finish line. Their dominance in England was one thing, but to be immortalised, they needed to figure out a way to win the Champions League. They knew just one more player could be the difference, one star to help them achieve European glory, and in summer 2022, they got him. Erling Haaland, the best young striker on the planet, was now a Man City player. With him in the team, their goal for the 22-23 season was simple: win the league, win the Champions League, cement themselves in history.
Let's start though with a day of unprecedented action from the Premier League, who have charged Manchester City with over 100 breaches of its financial fair play rules. The Premier League champions say they're surprised and insist they're innocent. It's more than 100 breaches of financial fair play rules. 8 charges relate to the terms and content of the former manager Roberto Mancini's contract. City failed to comply with UEFA rules. The Premier League has similar rules governing what clubs can spend, and they've charged City with 25 breaches of those rules. City didn't cooperate with or assist the league in its investigation.
Manchester City FC is surprised by the issuing of these alleged breaches of the Premier League rules. The club welcomes the review of this matter by an independent commission to impartially consider the comprehensive body of irrefutable evidence that exists in support of its position. As such, we look forward to this matter being put to rest once and for all.
My first thought is that we are already being condemned. So like what's happened right now, these weeks after Monday, it's happened the same what happened in UEFA. The club proved that we're completely innocent. Why should not think right now when there is not even accusation, it's just condemned, it's just charges or suggestions. We have a society when everyone, like you said, is innocent until proven guilty. We didn't have this opportunity. We are already sentenced.
Man City already did this with UEFA and now had to do it again with the Premier League. So what was different this time? Well, this investigation took 4 years, a lot longer than UEFA's, because first, there's no time barring on any evidence. Second, the Premier League weren't just looking at a few sponsorship deals, but a multitude of allegations. And finally, the Spiegel in 2022 published a whole load more emails relating to all of City's wrongdoings. All of it was out in the public to see, way more damaging than the couple of emails UEFA took to CAS. This was a mountain of emails, contracts, arrangement about literally everything, ranging from inflated sponsors to Mancini's contract to getting around rules to sign under 16s by using hidden payments. It was all there, and the Premier League was examining everything, taking their time to really make sure they got it right. So to charge City with 115 breaches was a serious allegation. Even being guilty of 2 or 3 charges was bad, but 115 was ridiculous. So what comes after this? Well, an independent 3-person panel is chosen, and in secret, they are to hear both sides' arguments, review their evidence, and then come to a decision on what the punishment should be. Either side could appeal the punishment, which means another independent 3-person panel will review the case and evidence and come to a verdict, and that would be final. The Court of Arbitration for Sport could not get involved. The panel has the power to punish City however they see fit. Doesn't matter how big the punishment. But the hearing and the verdict of the hearing was still some time away. For now, City were in the middle of a historic season, chasing the treble, and the show must go on. The The 22-23 season saw the team achieve great feats. Haaland broke the Premier League goal scoring record with 36 goals. They won the league title for the third time in a row and completed the domestic double, winning the FA Cup over rivals Man United. But to truly make this season historic, they needed to secure the one trophy that's eluded them for so long. They managed to reach the Champions League final where they played Inter Milan. Thanks to a Rodri goal, City finally got their hands on European silverware and were champions of Europe, completing a historic treble as well. It would have gone down as one of the greatest club seasons in history, but no one could ignore the massive elephant that was the 115 charges looming over their head. Unfortunately, until these charges were dealt with, their success was now always going to be tainted.
I will stay next season.
Will you be here next season?
Yeah. I will stay next season when 100 breaches for the Premier League against us. Don't worry, we will be there. So let's go. Come on, 24 hours, sit down, talk, and both sides, lawyers, present. Don't wait 1 year, 2 years. Why don't do it quickly? Come on. And as soon as possible for the benefit for everyone. So
Pep was right to want to move on fast. Everyone wanted answers quick, but this process ended up being the complete opposite. The entire 23-24 season, the case for the 115 charges didn't move forward. The football world was kept in the dark about the details. Crazily enough, that season City won yet another league title, their fourth in a row, and it was now 6 in 7 years. One of the most dominant eras in football history, but as was the consensus, until the charges are resolved, that will always be the main focus, no matter how many trophies you win.
Yeah, of course it's frustrating. I think the reference is always frustrating. Having it being talked about the way it's being talked about. I can feel, of course, for our fan base, for everyone associated with the club, to have these charges constantly referenced. I think we, as a club, have to respect that there's a process that we have to go through, and we're going through it. It's taking longer than what anyone hoped for, but it is what it is. And I've always repeated that in every interview I've done with you, Chris, is let's be judged by the facts and not by claims and counterclaims.
It wasn't until September 2024, nearly 2 years since the Premier League first announced the charges, that the sports trial of the century finally took place. By December 2024, the hearing was over. Both sides had presented their arguments, their evidence, and now it was up to the independent panel to review everything and come up with the verdict, which many said would be given by spring 2025. Until then, it was more waiting. While we wait, let's talk about the speculation of the punishments that could be handed out. There were a range of opinions on what it could be. Some were expecting an 80-point deduction, anything enough to ensure their relegation. Some even said if they were found guilty, City would need multiple points deductions over the next few seasons. Yet, there was also talk about City getting just another slap on the wrist fine, which, if they did, would greatly call into question the Premier League's ability to enforce their own rules, even encouraging other teams to do the same without the fear of consequence. All of this speculation, however, hinged on the fact that City had to be proven guilty by the Premier League, which, given the amount of emails that were leaked by Der Spiegel, is what many were assuming was going to be the case, especially since we know those emails are authentic. The least they will do is get a heavy fine, no matter what, and they are pretty much already guilty of non-cooperation, something they received a fine for in the UEFA case. Knowing the potential punishments, the whole world waited for the verdict in 2025, but 2025 came and went, and still nothing. And as of filming this, we still have no further knowledge on this potential verdict for a hearing that finished in 2024. Truthfully, no one knows when we will get a verdict. Neither Man City or the Premier League have any influence over the matter anymore. Literally everyone is waiting for this panel of 3 people to make their judgment. It could be tomorrow, it could be 3 years from now, who knows? We just have to accept there's a mountain of evidence to go through, now 130 charges to review, and in a case of this size, arguably the biggest in football history, they need to make sure they get it right. As for now, we have zero clue what the panel is looking at, how far along they are, or what they're thinking. It won't be until the verdict is published that we start to get the full details of the case to know what's actually been going on behind the scenes. What we can say for sure will happen, however, is if Man City get anything other than a fine, be it a points deduction or whatever, they will 1000% appeal that decision, meaning another 3-person panel will review the case again, which means another very long time before we even get to the full conclusion, so we're nowhere near the end of this story. We also need to know what's really at stake here. This isn't just a case about football. This is an entertainment company versus the deputy prime minister of one of the richest, most powerful countries on the planet. The Premier League don't want City to be guilty, but they need to maintain sporting integrity. City, however, will not take this lying down. They will fight this for as long as humanly possible until they win, and if they don't win, they will fight the Premier League to make sure everybody else loses. City already made their intentions clear to UEFA. We would rather spend £30 million on the 50 best lawyers in the world to sue you for the next 10 years. This will not end well for anyone at all. The longer this case drags on, the more disappointed people will be in the verdict, no matter which side. In the meantime, everyone just has to wait. But this story is still very, very far from over.